Hey everybody, Jake here from Bearded Gear, and I think I'm ready to do my full review on the Tanto Paramilitary 2. This one was an interesting experience in the sense of the way that the unboxing and the first impressions videos ultimately went. This video is not going to be at all about Bladehq. I'm just going to say this is Bladehq's exclusive. And that's all I'm going to say about it. I don't think we need to keep going down that path. But this is a really intriguing thing in the world of the PM2. The Paramilitary 2 is, in my opinion, and from what I can observe, kind of the flagship model. The number one, like, when you think Spyderco, this is the knife you think of, at least in my opinion, from the time that I've been collecting knives and in the hobby. For people who've been into it for a lot longer, maybe for them it would be more like the military, or I don't know. I feel like even then this knife has just kind of taken over and is synonymous with Spyderco at this point. When I think Spyderco, this is the knife I think of. It's just everything that is Spyderco in my head. But this one obviously is different than a regular Paramilitary 2. I have my Rec exclusive Scorpion PM2 right here. So you can see blade shape is obviously the difference. We're radically changed here. If you're not familiar with what a Tanto is, this is a Tanto. I happen to usually kind of like Tantos. I've never been anti-Tanto and Tanto. It's just never been my favorite blade style either. I guess maybe when I was a kid I was really into Tantos, but they don't typically bother me. I just don't find that they're usually, like, if I have an option between blade shapes and Tanto is one of them, it's rare that I pick the Tanto. Every now and then there's one that comes along that feels like it's really right for the knife. Like when I had the Sharp by Design Evo Typhoon, I got that one in the Japanese style Tanto, and I thought that was just the way to go on that knife. This one actually has pretty similar grinds to what I really liked about that one, because it is technically kind of a compound grind. You get a hollow grind here for the main bevel, down to the kind of primary edge, and then out toward the tip you can see it transitions and becomes a flat grind. So there's a line here, where it switches from the hollow to a flat, and that allows this to have a more robust tip. I think personally this is kind of the best way to grind a Tanto from the ones that I've experienced. It just kind of gives you the advantage of getting relatively thin behind the edge here, although this one is a little thicker behind the edge than either of my regular ground PM2s that I currently own. But it is, if this was like a saber flat grind that started that low, it would not be as thin behind the edge as it is, because the grind only comes up to like here, not even halfway up the blade. Apologize, there's fingerprints all over this at the moment, but I've carried this knife a good handful of times. You can see I swapped back to the factory clip. I did that when the Rec PM2 arrived, because I wanted to put the deep carry clip on here, because this is a keeper user, love it forever PM2, and I like carrying my PM2s with deep carry clips on it. I haven't put this in pocket since this got here, because I've been so excited for that knife that it's really not fair. But I found pretty quickly in my testing with this, I didn't do anything crazy. I did a little bit of cutting here and there, through some cardboard, through some paper, nothing all that crazy. But I just wanted to kind of feel how it performed. I realized pretty quickly I don't think I'm going to be keeping this knife. In fact, now I'm certain that I'm selling it, and I already have a buyer lined up. So this knife is going away. After I finish this review, I will be packing it up and I will be sending it to the next owner. So I didn't want to be rough on it, knowing that I wasn't going to keep it forever. There's a couple of reasons why I'm not keeping it forever. The first one is that it's S30V, and I don't mean to be such a steel snob. Steel isn't always the most important thing to me, but I do get excited about really nice steels. So the reason why I love the Scorpion PM2 is because it's in CPM 10V. One of the reasons why I really like the Avocado PM2 is because it's in 204p. I like 10V better than 204p, but this is still like a premium steel through and through. S30V is Spyderco's kind of baseline steel on their American manufactured knives at this point. And so I don't feel like having those paramilitary 2s in my collection really have much of a need for a baseline one in addition to them. It just doesn't scratch an itch for me. And then in addition to that, the fact that it's a Tanto makes it exciting, right? I'm not usually a big multiples kind of guy in terms of having multiple of the same knife in my collection. In fact, it's kind of weird that now I have those two PM2s, but they're different enough. They're both from River's Edge Cutlery, who are friends of mine at this point and are just fantastic. I love both of those knives, and they're different enough that I can justify it, right? But this, even being a Tanto, it's different, but I don't necessarily appreciate the difference. I've mentioned in a few videos lately, I'm just not that into tactical knives these days. Some of them I can get behind, and I do find tactical knives kind of exciting, but I find when I have them in pocket, when they're the knife that I'm carrying for a day, I just enjoy them less than knives that are balanced for other things. So the blade shape on the Spyderco Paramilitary 2 and the grind is one of my favorite things about the model. The Paramilitary 2 is one of my favorite knives, period. I adore the knife. I get that there are quite a few people who don't really love the PM2, but there are also there's a large swath of people that love the PM2. There's a huge following for the knife, and I'm one of the people in the camp that loves it. And part of what makes it so good, in my opinion, is the way the blade is done. Because the full flat grind that gets it's not like the thinnest, sliciest behind the edge knife ever, but for like an EDC, everyday carry, appropriate grind, I feel like it's kind of nailing it. Could it be a little thinner and still be functional? Yes, but the way that this knife slices and goes through material, whether it's something like an apple, or whether it's cardboard, or whether it's a heavy-duty zip tie, or whether it's, if you watch my first impressions or initial review of the Rec PM2, I was putting it through wood and feather sticking, and I was jabbing the tip into stuff. And this blade shape I don't find is too weak for anything that I realistically encounter that I should be using a folder for. And so what I love about it is that it's not too weak, but it's very precise. The way that this tip pierces through things and where it puts the tip, like the geometry of where the tip actually is, I just find the way that this knife works for me works superbly well. But on the Tanto, a lot of those things that I love about how the blade performs aren't there. It really just kind of feels like someone Frankensteined a blade from a totally different knife onto a PM2 handle, which is exactly what happened. This isn't the same blade anymore, but it doesn't perform like a PM2 does in my mind. And the reason why I enjoy a PM2 so much is because of the way I relate to it when I'm using it. And with this, I just don't get that. It's not bad. This knife is fully functional. It slices fine. It's a little bit like thick throughout, especially because it's not the full flat grind. I do feel more resistance as I go through material, but this one feels more tactical. Like someone commented, I don't remember if it was on a picture I posted or on a video, but they said the regular PM2 is for slicing apples, and this one is for slicing apples that are in your enemy's stomach. And like, I get that. This one's tactical. It's designed to go through flesh and bone, and that's why a lot of people, I think, find it more alluring. For me, I think that's cool, but it makes me find it less alluring. I just don't appreciate these characteristics for actual use. So it's not that they're bad. It's not that I don't understand that they have a place. It's just that it's not my favorite. So ultimately, I don't really have much like purely negative to say about the knife. It functions like a great PM2. There's a little more weight in the blade, so it's a little bit different to play with, but it's the same knife. Same lock, hole in the same spot. You can open it all the same ways. It functions pretty identically. When you're holding it, it feels like the same knife, because it is, but the difference in blade doesn't enhance it for me. It makes it worse. For me. So if you're somebody who your style of use is more in line with this kind of heavier duty blade shape, less precise but more brutish, then more power to you. I have nothing against that at all whatsoever. I think that's great for you. But for me, it's less functional for the types of tasks that I would do with this type of knife. So for that reason, I think it's just, ultimately, I don't hate this knife. I really don't want it to come across like I'm negative, like I have a baggage against it, or my experience in getting it was not my favorite. Sure. And I do think they ask a little too much for the materials that are being offered here. I happened to last night be listening to one of the older Knife Nuts podcasts. I was catching up, and it was about when this knife dropped, and they were talking about the price difference. And a base S30V PM2 is like $162. Coated, I think it's like 165-ish. It's like still sub 170 for sure. And so this one, compared to a coated S30V one, same material, is like an extra $25, I think, if my math is right. And that's not an obscene amount of money, right? But this one, which is PVD coated, which is a way more difficult, demonstrably more difficult coating to accomplish for Spyderco because of how many times they had to get these redone because it wasn't going correctly. This one was like $172, 169, 172, I think. Like $20 less than this one. I get that they ground it differently, but I don't know. I find it hard to believe that Spyderco has difficulty grinding a Tanto. They grind Tantos on other knives, so you can call it tooling, whatever you want, but I mean, I don't. It's a relatively small amount of money, so I don't want to get too caught up about it. But I did think it was interesting that even as they were talking about it on Knife Nuts podcast, it was like, we don't really see where that gap comes from. I get a few dollars marked up because they're doing a little more grinding on it. It's a new thing, okay. But if this was $192 and it was in a vastly better blade steel, like how Bladehq uses M4 a lot, then I would have been like, that's fair. You're getting M4, and it's a different grind, and it's DLC coated. Okay, I see how you got there. But for S30V, it just seems like a lot of money for an S30V knife, to me, personally. Whether you agree with that or not, it'll be what it's going to be. But yeah, I guess I don't really have a super concise, like, this is how I feel about this knife. I think the proof is in, I'm going to resell it. It's going right in a box after I finish filming this, and it's going to the next owner. And I hope that they like it, and they probably will. I also know that a lot of the hype behind this is pretty justified, especially for people who love the PM2 and have a ton of PM2s. There's guys who collect like every single Sprint and exclusive and production version and all of that. And so this is a really cool thing to happen for the PM2, to have a different blade shape from factory. Like, I get it, that's an exciting thing. It just doesn't fit in my wheelhouse any better than a regular PM2 does. In fact, I find the regular PM2 to be preferable. So I guess that'll kind of be that. I know it's a little all over the place, but one thing I do want to say, I said I was going to talk about Bladehq. This is a positive thing though. After the second video went up, comments were crazy on both of them. Zach from Bladehq actually commented on the video and then DM'd me personally on Instagram as well. Asked me for the order number so that they could look into it. He said that they'd shared the video with the team and the comment section so people could read what was going on and for their management there. And I just want to say that's commendable. I think that's a good thing. I appreciated that they reached out and took the time. Yeah, I'm a small channel, and for me, that video kind of blew up, but compared to like their videos, those views were tiny numbers, rookie stuff, right? So the fact that they took notice and that they took the time to go ahead and reach out to me and say, sorry, sounds like it was a bummer. Let us look into it, if nothing else, just so we can learn more about it. And I was happy to give them the order number and have them look into it, because I think that's great that they want to take whatever they can of value from that experience. So kudos to them. I'll still be buying from retailers who don't charge sales tax to California, and I still don't think they're the fastest in the world at shipping, but it did mean a lot that they said that, or that they reached out and were kind and polite about it. And I've got nothing against the people there. I think they're fine people. So I'll let all of that be that. I guess that's it on this one. This is the Tanto Paramilitary 2. It is the first of its kind. I'm sure that Bladehq is going to be making a lot of these with Spyderco. It sold out relatively quickly. I can imagine that this will be something that they'll just kind of keep stocking. And I think, frankly, they should. I understand why some people would even prefer this over the regular PM2. And that's a good thing that there's more variety in the lineup now. I definitely don't think that's a bad thing at all. And yeah, I'll let all of that be what it is. So that'll be it. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. And I'll catch you on the next one.